Over the past 5 years, I've transformed my home golf simulator from this very basic amateur setup into a luxury studio. But it's not all been plain sailing. Through my own first-hand DIY experience with a little help from the professionals at Golf Swing Systems, I've learned a ton about how to build a high-quality home simulator. In this video, we're about to reveal some of the most common mistakes that golfers make when building their home golf simulator, and more importantly, how to avoid them. Having enough room height isn't the only dimension that can spoil your golf simulator plans. Isn't that right, mate?
Yeah, so everybody gets obsessed with the height of the room because you consider your golf swing, the club is traveling above your head. But one of the big things to consider is actually also the width of the room. So as you take your golf swing back, the club travels behind and around you. So behind you, you're going to have issues if your room is too narrow. You then have to offset yourself drastically to the right or the left to be able to swing, which then kills your immersion in the game.
So you won't be hitting from into the centre of your screen, you'll be hitting more to one side of the screen.
It's definitely something you're familiar with. You definitely made that mistake. Well, not a mistake, you made do with what you had.
I did, but it's still like once you have experienced hitting from the centre of a room, then you realise how strange it is actually hitting with an offset, isn't it?
So we have kind of like a Goldilocks number. That is a 4.5 metre wide room. Means you can have right and left-handers hitting from the centre of the hitting mat.
Yep.
3 metres high means that even if you've got someone with a crazy upsy-downsy swing, they're never going to hit the roof. And then 6 metres depth means you can use any radar on the market, whether it be TrackMan 4, Mevo Plus, and then the camera units are so much more compact, so you're always going to be able to use them.
Yeah. So that's like the ideal room dimensions, isn't it? So it is possible that you can still set up a golf simulator, but ideally you're going to want those perfect dimensions that we spoke about.
Yeah, and you can make do with quite a lot less than those. So it's actually quite rare in the UK especially to have a room with that kind of height and width. Usually you have one or the other.
Yeah.
Now, some numbers that you can bear in mind as minimums where you can look into your home and go, that might well fit a golf simulator, is effectively a single garage.
Okay.
So a single garage is 2.8 to 3.1 wide. Usually, the height can vary massively, but if you've got over about 2.7, then you're going to be good to go. And then depth-wise, anything that you can swing a golf club comfortably within, you'll be able to get a camera-based unit in there. So you may have to compromise on which units you're able to use, but you can still get a golf simulator and you can still get started.
Exactly. Imagine you've just spent thousands on an amazing new home golf simulator, but you can't actually use it. There's one item in your golf simulator that you really shouldn't cheap out on.
The hitting mat. We're standing on it right now. And this is definitely somewhere where I know when we first met, you were hitting off pretty much a doormat.
Oh, mate, it was
your
horrible.
poor elbow.
Yeah. I went to my local driving range and asked if they were selling any old hitting mats, and they were.
Yep.
So I picked one up for like 15 quid or something like that. However, that came with a price.
Yeah. So, magic deal. You've got your hitting mat, you're able to play golf. But with it being so worn down, Mitch was pretty much hitting off the rubber base.
Yeah.
So you had maybe 10 millimetres of...
It was well used.
Yeah, you had maybe 10 millimetres of mat, which effectively means you're hitting off your garage floor. Now, in comparison, there are some really sort of up-to-date hitting mats these days, which are, on average, I'd say around about 30 mil thick. Now, the one we're standing on here is our favourite. It's called T-Turf. It's the one you've got in your sim.
Fantastic.
It's basically all turf. So a lot of people call up and go, oh, what's the depth with the base? There is no base. It's all turf so that you can tee the ball up. And what that does is if you catch the ball fat, you're going to be held up by the mat, which is going to slow your club down. And that's then that injury prevention as well as the feedbacks. You're not going to bounce off that mat. Now, that bouncing is what causes those elbow, wrist, and shoulder issues. And they are all too common. We get people calling up and going, can you provide a mat for me which has sort of shock resistance or injury prevention because my elbows are messed up.
Your hitting mat is not only going to give you more accurate feedback from your launch monitor in terms of the data, but it's also very important to stop you from getting injured. Like Alex said, you've got elbow, wrist, even shoulder injuries that can happen because of a poor quality hitting mat.
It's important to note that that investment as well is not what it was a little while ago. So you can get traditional driving range mats now, like the QuadTech mat, the Airflex mat, there's all sorts of the shock resistant range mat. These are all much more affordable, sort of coming in around about the £200 mark.
Like I said, we don't want to build a golf sim and not be able to use it because we're injured.
No, not ideal.
So how good of a golfer are you?
Not very good.
Well, your skill level can arguably play a big role in choosing the right launch monitor for your setup. But you disagree with that, don't you?
I do. With the development of the launch monitor sort of industry, the range of launch monitors that you can get that give you properly accurate data now is far wider. So you can start at something like a Rapsodo or a Square Golf that are coming in, you know, 600 to 700 pounds, and they're going to give you accurate data. So it's going to suit the golfer from a beginner all the way up to a scratch golfer. I would be perfectly happy playing with an MLM2 Pro.
Would you?
Yeah, it gives good data. I'm happy with it. It has a swing replay. That's enough for me to work with. So as a scratch golfer and potentially somebody who's a 24 handicapper, both of us can get real value from a more budget launch monitor. You don't have to be a scratch golfer to buy a TrackMan. So you could be an 18 handicapper playing with a TrackMan and a scratch playing with an MLM2. Yeah. You're both getting accurate data, and you're both getting something that's going to make you better at golf.
The biggest improvement in the technology has been like the measurement of the ball data, hasn't it?
Definitely,
so with like the Square Golf launch monitor and the MLM2 Pro, they're now measuring spin rates and ball speeds and launch angle really accurately, and their algorithms are providing really accurate carry distances and stuff. So
they've had a lot more learning. They have a lot more time under their belt.
So they are now competing with the higher end launch monitors.
Yeah, I mean, especially things like spin axis, which means whereas you used to have to wait till you got to a sort of mid-range launch monitor to get an accurate look at what the shot shape was, you're now getting that from the very, very entry level of the market.
You can enter the golf simulator world with a budget device, and then if you want to look at upgrading as you get better or want more features, then you can start looking at the higher end launch monitors. You don't have to go in for a mid to high end launch monitor if you are like a really good golfer. You can start off basic and you can build your way up as you go. Now, a high quality and immersive image in a golf simulator can only be achieved by combining a few different pieces of equipment. And one of them is probably one that you wouldn't expect, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's not the projector that you're using, although a nice projector does make a world of difference.
Yep.
It's actually the hitting screen that you're hitting into. With a premium one, you're going to be able to sort of appreciate the graphics you're going to be getting from your launch monitor.
HD quality
an HD
image.
quality 4K impact screen.
Exactly, yeah.
So, you're using a SkyTrack Plus with GS Pro, something that's scalable to 4K with a 4K projector. Mm-hmm. You stick an archery net there, and you might as well be playing with, a potato camera.
You can invest in a really high-end projector that projects a 4K image. You can invest in a really high-quality graphics card for your PC or a high-end PC. But none of that matters if you have got a poor quality impact screen.
Exactly. And at that premium end of impact screens, although they do get expensive, there's no hiding behind that, it's an expensive part of your simulator. But if you were to look at the screen behind us, you'd maybe think that was pretty new. It's been in, for a few weeks, maybe a couple of months. This has had over 40,000 golf shots on it now.
Wow,
so we are working it out based on an average day. And if you do that out, it's coming out between 40 and 50,000 golf shots.
There's no marks on that. It's just an amazing quality image. We've obviously got a TrackMan software loaded up behind us, but yeah, fantastic.
The other thing to mention isn't necessarily the sort of quality of the screen, because that quality will be ruined if you go for the wrong size screen. You have to have the right size screen for your room in order to tension it and get that quality image.
So yeah, impact screen is a massive thing to consider instead of just looking at a high quality projector and a high quality gaming PC, because you're not going to get that HD or 4K image without a high quality screen.
Exactly.
You don't want to spend potentially thousands of pounds or dollars on a launch monitor, only to find out that when you get it into your simulator room, it doesn't work.
There's a launch monitor that will fit your room properly, and there are ones that won't. So if you've got a short room, for example, say your room was 4.5 meters long, you could still have a golf simulator in that. But if you try and shoehorn a TrackMan into that space, it's going to really struggle. Now, that's where you can start thinking about cameras as well.
So we're talking about there's like basically essentially 3 different types of launch monitor, isn't there? You've got a photometric camera-based launch monitor that sits to the side of your ball. You've got a Doppler radar launch monitor that sits behind your ball, like the TrackMan that Alex was talking about. And you've got your overhead ceiling mounted ones.
Yeah.
And effectively, if you have a room that's not got enough length or depth, then you are not going to be able to fit a Doppler radar launch monitor inside that room and get accurate data to be populated on your simulator.
Ceiling-based especially are going to be able to see almost straight down. So you can effectively swing in a phone box and still get great data. But also something like a GC3 or a square golf or a quad, all of these ones that sort of sit here, even the new R50, you're going to be able to put those in any room that you can swing and get a bit of ball flight out of it, because all of the measurements done within a yard.
It's just those Doppler radar units that sit behind you when you're hitting the ball. They're the ones that need at least 6 meters of room length.
Yeah, roughly. You can get away with a little bit less. I've seen them go into rooms at around about 5.5.
Yeah.
Because you remember you lose 300 off of the back wall with your screen as well.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
So you're then looking at 5.2. You're starting to get a little bit close.
So yeah, definitely consider the length of your room when it comes to deciding what launch monitor you buy. If you want to play the most realistic versions of world famous virtual golf courses, then you're going to have to spend a little more than what you might initially think.
Yeah, so gaming PCs, that's what you're talking about here. So they are a pretty significant outlay when you're setting up a simulator. You're talking, even for a budget one, over £1,000. The drawback, if you were to avoid this, if you wanted to try and set yourself up without a gaming PC, if you load up your GS Pro software, imagine seeing, instead of 30 frames a second, you're seeing 4 or 5.
It's going to be stuttery.
Very stuttery, and it may not even run. Now, there are some systems like the very basic ends, so sort of like the driving ranges on some systems, like shot analysis on TrackMan. You might get away with it on the FlightScope PC software.
But the point is that you're not going to be able to play the most realistic versions of these golf courses on your iPad, and even with a standard PC, you're not going to be able to even load up the GS Pro software or whatever you're using. What kind of graphics cards are we talking about?
Now, if you want to go for 4K, then most of them are recommending going for a 4070 and above.
Yeah.
Now, that graphics card on its own is going to cost you several £100, so it's much better to get it built into a full system, because you will make some savings by going for a full PC.
So I built my own PC, and a good thing about building a PC rather than a laptop is that you can easily upgrade the graphics card rather than having to buy a brand new laptop.
Those modular PCs as well, what it means, it gives you that kind of layer of security as well. So if a part fails, for example, if we built you a PC and a part fails within 3 years, rather than us have to spend the time to build you a new PC, what we do, we run out, we've got what's called a hot swap warranty.
Yeah.
So we literally just uninstall the part. So say your graphics card goes down for some reason, uninstall the graphics card, plug a new one in, and because it's modular, all you've got to do is restart the drivers and you're good to go.
Exactly. So yeah, don't make the mistake of thinking that you can just buy a launch monitor and play virtual golf courses with a standard PC or a laptop. Make the investment or do your planning so that you're going to have a gaming PC included in your budget if that's what you're after, playing high quality golf courses in your simulator. Now, indoor golf can actually be just as dangerous as outdoor golf at times, can't it?
Yeah, shank can hurt.
Absolutely. Especially if you're building a freestanding DIY simulator enclosure, which I've done in the past. And there was one point where I think it was a sand wedge, and it had hit one of the metal poles on my freestanding enclosure, and it came ricocheting back at me at close to 100 miles per hour.
I think I can see a dent.
It was sore. So this is a big mistake that people can make if they want to build a DIY freestanding enclosure. It's a very cost-effective solution to get your golf simulator up and running, but you need to protect those metal poles, don't you?
Yeah, and there's a couple of ways you can do it. So if you're building a DIY enclosure, or you already have one, you can install a screen in it that has what's called a pelmet. So you can see these black borders around the screen. They are effectively to cover anything metal. There are what we would call pop-up enclosures. Now, that maybe missells them slightly. They do still take about an hour to put up, but they have all their poles and all their protection included. So you've got...
So how are them poles in, so you guys sell the SimSpace enclosures, don't you? How are those poles protected from a stray golf ball?
Yeah, so the screen is effectively sort of suspended within the frame.
Okay, yeah.
And then from screen to the edge of the frame is again a pelmet. So that is effectively a fabric protection layer that goes sort of from screen to the edge of the enclosure. And then also the SimSpace ones come with a foam protection that can go over any exposed pole. So there'd be a pole at the bottom of your screen that goes along the bottom. Those foam sort of covers can go on there, and then the one that goes sort of over your left shoulder, put some foam on there as well, just in case you clip it with a golf club.
DIY enclosure, a great way to save money. Yeah. But I've actually just recently set up a ready-made freestanding enclosure, which was so convenient just because it comes with all of the foam protection included. It comes with all the Velcro fastenings, very similar to your SimSpace ones.
Yes.
So yes, you do have to pay a little bit more money for those that are pretty much pop-up, like you say. But it's definitely worth it because, like we said before, we don't want to get injured and not be able to use our simulator.
Golf balls hurt when they hit you.
They do.
Yeah, and you can tell he's been speaking with a funny accent ever since he took one to the head. So yeah.
With the advances in technology, launch monitors are becoming more and more accurate. But there's one aspect of golf simulators that just isn't quite true to real life.
The number of people we get calling up and saying, how good is the putting on your launch monitors? And if I'm being honest, it's subpar. Now, the reason being is not because it's not accurate.
So the misconception here, and I guess the mistake, is that somebody buys a golf simulator and expects the full area of golf to be very accurate with the launch monitors and the devices these days. But it is very accurate when it comes to drives and especially iron play and wedges. But when
even pace putts, even like a 30-foot putt, you're going to get really good at your pace
because it measures
control.
miles per hour very accurately nowadays, don't it, the launch monitors? But yeah, when it comes to that experience of playing simulator golf and your putting, it's not going to be as true to real life as maybe your iron play is.
Now, there's a reason why, for example, the next golf league run by TrackMan, you can win big sums of money every week. They don't do putting; they use an auto putt, and the reason is perceiving the data on a TrackMan or a GC3 or a SkyTrack, whatever you end up using, is very, very difficult. So it's going to play havoc with your real golf game. So my advice: use an auto putt. Don't mess up your golf game.
Feel free to go ahead with your putting. I like it more than you've said, but like I say, it's not going to be extremely accurate. So don't expect to be putting away on your launch monitor inside your golf sim and then going out to the course and then sinking everything from 6 feet. If you're going to have left-handed and right-handed golfers using your golf simulator, then you need to be very careful about which type of launch monitor you buy.
Yeah, definitely. So if you've got the dreaded lefty friends, we all have them. There's a reason it's called the right hand.
I don't have any, which is great.
It's because you play golf with the right hand. But say we have some lefty strays that come into our golf simulator. If you've got a camera-based launch monitor, that thing is going from left to right and left to right all day because you have to flip it so that it can see a left-hander shot traveling past it.
Have to move its position each time.
So it's going to be on either side of the hitting mat, and you're going to have to actually go into the settings and tell it that there's a left-handed player playing.
And it's going to mess with the alignment of it, the unit towards your simulator as well.
It's just not ideal. So if you've got the ability to have a radar or a ceiling-based launch monitor, that cures all of these problems, because if you walk up and hit a left-handed shot on a simulator, it's going to track everything, understand it's left-handed and give me proper data. I could then next shot flip round and hit a right-handed one from the same spot, and it's going to do exactly the same thing.
Don't look at buying a photometric camera-based launch monitor that sits to the side of your ball if you're going to have friends over who are lefties, or if you've got kids that are lefties. Then that's just going to cause you frustration. It's going to cause you issues. You're going to be better off with a radar-based launch monitor that sits behind you, or an overhead ceiling mounted launch monitor, so that you don't need to change any settings in your software and you don't need to mess around with any of the alignment of your device. So for any information about the equipment that we've spoken about in this video, then check out the links in the description below.
And also, if you've got any other questions that we haven't covered and you feel like you may be going down the wrong path, remember, you can always drop a comment in the video below. Mitch is very, very knowledgeable about this stuff, so he'll be able to help you. But also, if you've got anything that you think you want to ask, the professionals, we're always at the end of the phone. You don't necessarily have to buy anything from us. We are always there to just help out and give you as best advice as we can.
It can be a complicated journey building your first ever home golf simulator, but hopefully this video has helped you out. If it has, drop a like down below and subscribe to Handicap Golf, and we will see you next time.